What's happened is that the consumer mindset and the business mindset has been crushed with fear throughout this pandemic. And the restaurant industry specifically has been vilified as these vectors of spread. And that is so wrong. That's not the case at all. From the very beginning, I said, look, we should be used as the proper models through which we can, exhibit to everybody that you can operate in a safe manner. Restaurants inherently pre-pandemic are trained and taught to focus on safety, sanitation, serve safe, food handler certificates. We're in some cases probably more sanitary than certain medical environments. But yet we have become the fictitious villains of the pandemic when none of the data and none of the science proves that.
I don't know if you know the restaurant, Boa in West Hollywood or Beverly Hills. It's my favorite steak joint in LA. I took my team there last week for my producer's birthday. I love that place. The food is awesome. The atmosphere is great, but this was the first time indoors since this whole thing. And they had to do what they had to do. So it's separated, the guys have masks, the waiters with masks and face shields. Nobody's sitting at the bar anymore. They can't do the tableside Caesar. And it was like, we had a great time, but it just didn't feel right to me. It just kind of didn't feel right. Are you worried that as things continue to open up, that just getting the atmosphere back is going to be tricky? And also people's ability to want to sit at a bar and talk to somebody. I miss that.
Yeah, the fear is palpable, and it's coming through in the design, the branding, every single element of the restaurant industry. And that is intentional, in my opinion, right? Because what's happened is that the consumer mindset and the business mindset has been crushed with fear throughout this pandemic. And the restaurant industry specifically has been vilified as these vectors of spread. And that is so wrong. That's not the case at all. From the very beginning, I said, look, we should be used as the proper models through which we can, exhibit to everybody that you can operate in a safe manner. Restaurants inherently pre-pandemic are trained and taught to focus on safety, sanitation, serve safe, food handler certificates. We're in some cases probably more sanitary than certain medical environments. But yet we have become the fictitious villains of the pandemic when none of the data and none of the science proves that. And we've absorbed it, right? So now it's these restaurateurs kind of tiptoeing through and hoping that they don't get canceled or that a private Facebook group doesn't take a photo of somebody without a mask. It really is unfortunate, and it's going to put the industry back years.
What kind of crazy nonsense have you had to do? Well, I don't even know. So what's going on in OC right now? Are you guys somewhat open indoors? What's the regulation as we speak right now?
Yeah, 50% indoors. We can dine outdoors now, which is huge. And, obviously there's all those kind of little levers that you need to put in place in regards to operations are still there. But people are scared. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. Whether it's OC, whether it's LA, people kind of try and draw the distinction between the two, but it's not as distinct as many would suggest. And of course, there's a political tribalism that runs through a lot of it. And I tell people the stories. It's funny. Me personally, I have been the target of a lot of ire here in Orange County. And we, from day one, have been really vocal about how we can follow the rules, but also open and operate properly, and that we are safe spaces for people who want to get out, but also feel free and can eat independent of fear from COVID.
Were you worried?
People don't like
Were you
that.
worried that as you kind of spoke out more against lockdowns and some of this stuff that we're talking about here, that because you're political, because everything sort of then becomes political, that was going to have a cost?
Yeah, of course. But it was after I spoke out against Newsom's ban on outdoor dining, it was full panic, right? Hitting every single outlet from New York Post to what have you, right? This little rant that I went on in my own kitchen went completely viral, and my phone was blowing up with positive and negative comments, you name it. But then what started to happen was people started to support the business from afar. People were calling up saying, hey, I just run $1,000 on my credit card. I appreciate you speaking out. And I realized at that moment that it was true. People had talked about this idea that the people who cancel you are not the people spending money at your business. And it really rang true. I mean, look, since we've been vocal, and I don't think that we've been vocal in the sense of offending anybody. We've just been very principled with our positions and supporting those in the restaurant industry. Our sales have been up 300, 400% in certain circumstances.
Yeah, when that happened, that shutdown, or I guess it was maybe the second shutdown, it's hard to remember the order of all this, but that outdoor ban when Sheila Kuhl, Supervisor Sheila Kuhl here in LA, announced she was the 3-2 deciding vote to shut down outdoor dining, and then she went to eat outdoors in Santa Monica to her favorite Italian restaurant. That to me was the one that like snapped me. I was at her house the next day protesting because I was like, this is now just beyond the pale.
Yeah, and you know, I was getting messages, emails, phone calls from hundreds of restaurant owners in LA and Orange County, all of whom are, you know, dyed-in-blue Democrats.
Yeah.
And just absolutely livid. And it was at that point that I realized that this is a nonpartisan issue. You can make anything partisan, but really, when we start to watch the people who are setting the rules breaking their own rules, and then it's literally crushing the businesses, people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, now suddenly people's eyes open up.
So from Sheila Kuhl going to a restaurant, let's talk about our governor. I know you're not a fan of Mr. Newsom. That's not even a question. Just talk about him.
Look, you know, I would love to be able to sit down in a room with Newsom and try and understand what's driving a lot of his decisions, because he's very, very eloquent. He's well-spoken. Sometimes he does seem principled. We know who's driving a lot of his decisions. He's tribal with the ways in which he makes decisions. He's a good team player for those that are within his political sphere, and I give them that. But through the pandemic, it went beyond those partisan lines, and he started to do things to fundamentally alter the ways in which a lot of us in California operate and look at local governments and state governments. And I think that he was trying to set a new baseline nationally by a lot of his peers to say, look at how far I can go. This is what we can do in California. Mm-hmm. And look, Biden even echoed that message when he said California is really the example by which we should all go, the entire country. And a lot of that went to his head, clearly. But when he started to break his own rules and the arrogant nature of his comments about that started to get, you know, replayed over and over again on all these outlets, and then he would double down on it, it made me realize that his narcissism was in full effect. And I don't even know if he was a human making those decisions or some sort of a robot.
18 grand on booze alone at French Laundry. That's a lot of booze. How much beer would I have to buy at Slapfish for 18 grand?
On Taco Tuesday, we're going $2. So, you know, you do the math. Divide by 2, carry the 0.
That's a lot of booze. That's a lot of booze. All right, so it came with some cost, but obviously some benefit. I sense you're kind of actually digging this new direction just for you personally.
It's tough, right? It's a juggle. But I think it all still does come back to food, and that's what I've said from the very beginning. Food is the great connector, right? It is the great unifier. When it comes to food, I mean, you know, you can put all of your differences aside and argue over whether it's pineapple on pizza or whether it's, you know, toasting 2 sides of a grilled cheese sandwich. People very quickly forget about the reasons. Yeah. And we do need a little bit of that unity right now. And I'm not trying to sing kumbaya, but I do feel that food is the vehicle through which we can get there.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.